Hello Internet and welcome to Season 2 of Ship of the Week, a series where I have just 1 hour to design a ship based on your viewer suggestions and hopefully make it work. Ships that do pass my completely unbiased inspection will go up on the workshop for everyone to download and enjoy, but the ships that don't make the cut, well, they get scuttled. We have a lot of great new ideas this season and a lot of new game mechanics to test out. So let's hop right on in to Ship of the Week. So for this week we're going to be answering the age-old question of how do I get my atmospheric-only spaceship into space? So essentially I want the efficiencies of an electric-powered ship, so atmospheric thrusters and ion thrusters for space, but I'm annoyed by how difficult it is to make the transition from atmosphere to space with only electric thrust. And I have a solution for this little dilemma that we will get to. So here we are on Earth under the bright blue skies with the nice brown grass. I don't know, it's vaguely deserty. I don't know why I'm here in this part, but yeah, it's kind of nice in its own way. Anyway, we need a timer. And I guess without further ado, in 3, 2, 1, begin. So, what I'm going to need for this, my plan is to build basically just a little cargo shuttle. For that, we're going to need cargo containers, we're going to need batteries. I'm going to use the warfare thrusters because I like their look. Actually, maybe we'll try it with the sci-fi thrusters and see how they look. And we're going to need hydrogen thrust, but not in the traditional way. We probably need cockpit. We'll need other stuff as we get going. This will just be the basics. So I think this is the core of our ship. We want 2 cargo containers worth of, well, cargo. So, from here, let's go ahead. Yeah. The building this without a sprue will kind of decide how we do a lot of the design. But it should be fine. Maybe. So 4 batteries should be good. No, maybe I don't do cargo in here. We'll have one of those. And then... Ooh. I'll have one of those, and then... we'll have an O2H2 generator. Ooh, actually, how does... yeah, that works perfectly. So because of where the connectors are at the very bottom of this, I can hook that straight onto the O2H2 gen, and then we've almost got a little truck cockpit. And it'll be just kind of at the right height. So the main idea here is that this ship is going to be essentially a hybrid. It's going to have thrust for every situation, but choicely applied so that it is, ideally efficient. Quote unquote efficient, if you will. Now how do I want... I have to figure out how I want to lay that thrust out. And I think what I'm going to do... we should hopefully have enough batteries. I'm just going to put a block there. Whoops. Let's go ahead real quick. This is a handy thing when building stuff. Oh. Now the dampeners are off, but if I do that, get in real quick, turn dampeners off again. Yeah, the ship is no longer trying to fly, which is good. So we'll have those thrusters, and then Maybe thrusters up here. I want this thing to have a lot of lift. So that it can transport a pretty full cargo load on planets. Yeah, let's go ahead and get the star of the show here, which is the one use of hydrogen thrust. Ooh, and actually I have a fun idea for how to do this. So, goodbye you. Goodbye cockpit, ever so briefly. One of these adapters. That'll be good. So I can still have my cockpit piped up. It's a little bit more pushed back, but that should be fine. Yeah. Dang it, this doesn't actually work how I wanted either. I had a fun idea to make a sort of modular booster bit, but it doesn't make much sense to attach it back here. This is something long-time viewers will be familiar with by now. Sometimes you just have an idea, you start down that road, and it's not worth following. So we'll just slap that on the back of that cargo container. What we need to do is find a good spot to fit in a few small hydrogen tanks. The small hydrogen tanks are the key to this whole operation. If I replace this block here with a tube, I could have them right out the back here, but it could get in the way of potential armoring. But I think it makes the most sense. I already have things sticking out there. So we can use our handy enclosed corner. Just real quick, I'm gonna... yeah. Turn on mirror mode, because it's just gonna make life easier. So from here, I can have my tanks. Hopefully I just need the 2 of them. Then we'll have our thrusters back. Basically the idea here, I have atmospheric thrust, I will have ion thrust on this system, and then I have a hydrogen booster to carry me basically over the threshold into space. This is a system I've used on my, I think my Type 4 shuttle, which I printed off in a previous video. It had this system where you had a hydrogen booster with a few small tanks, and then everything else was powered by batteries and battery thrust. And actually, speaking of that, because I have the room... no. Because I have the room, I'm just gonna put 2 more little thrusters on. Just for a little extra oomph, because I don't know if 2 full cargo containers can be carried up by just 1 hydrogen thruster, plus all the other stuff. But that's the only hydrogen is forward facing. That's the key. The other key is I just have these small tanks, so I don't actually need, I don't need a full, basically the cargo container again just for fuel. So with that going, we need some other directions of thrust, and I think for those, I'm actually going to use the flat atmospheric thrusters, or flatmos. And that's mainly because, I don't really... this thing needs a lot of lift to carry cargo, but it doesn't need necessarily a lot of speed to maneuver around. And the flatmos just make it so much easier to fit thrust in. So that should be enough. I may put some more sideways thrust in if I feel I need it. Now we'll do our ion. And the nice thing about ion is once you're in space, it doesn't matter. You don't need as much thrust to maneuver. Any little bit'll do. You'll be very slow, but pardon the idea, some of the concept for this style of ship would be you have like an orbital space station or, you know, just a ship up in space. You launch this little guy, it flies down, you can land just with gravity and having enough lift to keep you from crashing. You can do all that with atmospheric thrust. Then you move around down on the planet, gather whatever resources you need. Then off you go flying back up. In theory, you're moving straight to your point, so once you're in space, you don't have to maneuver that much. It would basically just be short, you know, low-speed docking maneuvers anyway. To that end, we'll have 2 thrusters there. We can have sideways thrust there. Have down and up thrust there. That should be all the directions of... all the directions of all thrust, actually, that I need. So... now... let's see. I'm going to want a gyroscope. I'll just put it there for ease. Then... let's see. I mean, this thing should fly as it is. Yep, it flies. It seems to have enough thrust for all the directions of thrust that it could need. Okay. Well, that took 15 minutes. It's the magic of building in small grid. It's relatively simple. And I guess designing something you've already built. Now I guess the only trick is this thing is hideous. Like actually hideous. I think I'm gonna need a full exterior on this thing. I'm probably gonna be moving thrusters around to do it. So I think I have a vision for the front. So let's work on that first, and I think part of that vision is actually to not have those there. So we move them back there, which makes some sense. So essentially what we're building here is a space truck. So in the spirit of space truck, I feel like it should have... oh, maybe a different nose. And actually, I have a better spot for the gyro. Right in there. So, let's see. It's kind of compelling. Very boxy nose. And almost, oddly enough, it feels a little reminiscent of what was that crud? I can't remember the name of that game now. It was the one that launched sometime in the past. Big fanfare, and then it kind of sucked. No Man's Sky. This kind of reminds me of something from that, because it looks like a bunch of random assets slapped together. Let's see. Okay, from the inside, yeah. What I was sort of going for was from this view, for it to feel a bit like you're in a semi-truck type of thing. So, you can see your hood.
Fuel critical.
I think I may actually... I think I may go with that, and then... yes. That's something. So from in here, you've got that long hood. You can see a little bit of sloping.
Fuel critical.
Yeah, that's perfect. We could even... how will that look?
Fuel critical.
Kind of compelling, but... I mean, it blocks your view a bit.
critical.
Ooh, heck. So I'm going for sort of a hood ornament idea. I've got one. It's a little wild. What will one of those? Nah, still too big. Got one more idea here. There are some very small bits in the neon tubes. No, that seems to be it, and that's just gonna look like an awkward periscope. You know, I've given it a missing texture nose ring. We don't need that. I think this will be good as is. Maybe if I want to be cute, actually. Here, we'll do sort of like some dump trucks do, where... So, we'll have that basically just as... Oh, no, it doesn't work. I was hoping I could use that as a sort of cheaty connector. But yeah, no, it floats off the front still. Okay. We'll do it with a Sabroid. So, yeah, sometimes garbage trucks will have like an old teddy bear tied to the grill. Actually, I've got a better detail piece up here. Focusing a lot of attention on just this front little bit. But yeah, one of those, that way it'll flare open occasionally. I think it'll look cool. Alright, so we've got the cab of our space truck. Now I kind of want to improve. Part of it is that this doesn't look very good. Let me try those in there. So in a little closer. I'm gonna wanna fix that up so the connection looks about right. I think that improves the lines a little bit. Because honestly, the back isn't quite so bad. I mean, it's not great, but yeah, it'll do. Maybe what I do back here. I kind of like this sloping down after the cab. But I think it could be improved. Maybe by... That sort of works. I am beginning to feel like I just want to cover up the cargo containers. Which I don't super love doing, just because it's a lot of detail. I feel like it's easier in Space Engineers to go with the greeble the blocks give you. But, I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite right. Maybe we only partially cover them. We'll do like this. If I can get this transition to look decent, I think this could work. And that might be a tall order. It's starting to look like a dog that's gone flat. I think I'm flowing too much is my issue. If I'm going with the idea of this being basically a space truck, I think I need to go boxier. Which is odd in Space Engineers, because normally you want to avoid boxy, but... Whoops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Yeah, I think in this case, boxy is going to be our friend. We'll do that for the thrusters. That'll help break up the lines just a little bit. Then We do that. Those in there. And just for the sake of it, we'll cover that with panels so that it doesn't look so bad. Yeah, I think that's a little better. So we've broken up, so we've got the cab section, then a distinct cut, and then the cargo section. For the back of the cargo section, I think I'm again just gonna do those. Now... Oh, this thing has a lot of lift.
Fuel critical.
Now we deal with the underside, which has one thing we need, which is a connector. Down there. I suppose you could... Well, that would be tricky with this design with the thruster where it is. If I wanted to, I could also have a back connector and change how I did this, but that's a lot of work, and I've already done this. Plus, I feel like most of the time, at least for me, whenever I'm designing something, I do like these over here where I have a landing pad with a connector built into the floor. It just, makes more sense to me. I'll follow a similar idea down here, but it's probably going to end up a little different. Mainly because I want to integrate the connector, I think, into this line. Yeah, that's something. Now... I think I need to land, but... I have an interesting idea. What I'm gonna do is... actually, that's the same height as the connector. I'm gonna build a little stalk just so that I can keep this thing up in the air while I work on thrusters. Maybe these thrusters make more sense for this. Let's try doing that. Basically, I moved the thrusters down a block as well so that they are level with the connector, which isn't great because it means you're landing on your thrusters, but it's kind of compelling. Though I do feel like with the back here, this now sticks out too much. So I have the big thrusters. There are also small thrusters of the Flatmo variety. I could integrate those a little easier. I could actually put them inside there. In fact, if I did like that, so that's 8 pushing forward, 8 reversing. I think it's in here. No, maybe it's in this one. This one. These little wedge bits. Yeah, that sort of tie that shape together. Back here, I may just ignore it, or maybe I do pop these out like so. So, mainly because I don't have a good piece to fill that gap. Or do I? This is always the challenge, is remembering what shapes you have. Because actually... Yep, actually that does it perfect. Never mind. Yeah, that's... I mean, admittedly, this is a boxy shape. There's no getting around that. But unless... No, that just looks more awkward. I have an idea for making these thrusters a little less awkward. That'll involve our good friends, the beam blocks. Basically just make them feel a little more tied into the rest of the ship. I think the last thing here will be a nice paint job. So I guess I should talk a bit about painting, because I usually just cut that out. So I've started with I'm sort of going with like an old truck vibe. So I've started with an off-white, sort of weird tannish color, sort of look like faded white. I've used the battered armor to give it kind of an old and used feel. Then I'm adding splashes of color. So I've got this little thing, which is just basically using panels to create paint shapes. I had some panels there covering up the sides of the thrusters anyway. So kind of gives it a little splash of color. I'm trying to figure out how to do back here because of the placement of the thrusters. I guess I could move the thrusters out a further block, but that seems kind of excessive. I think part of what I'll do... So, something to keep in mind with painting. Blocks already have colors to them, right? So you've got whatever you've painted, but then there's this dark gray, and there's this dark gray on the thrusters that's already baked into your paint job. That's already a color in your palette. So I like to use that, which you just kind of match by eye. I like to use it for extra details. So for our little supports, it would make sense that they're just, you know, not particularly specially painted. Now they stand out a little more against the colors of the armor because I've painted them into that gray. It also ties that gray color into more of the ship. Now...
Fuel critical.
I think my biggest issue is this big flat. What I could try and do is get some of these colors splashed up here. So I think that's what I'll try. We're gonna go, this is, you know, a little non-traditional, but if I nose myself in so I paint that block and not this block, I'm gonna have sort of a center stripe with my yellow, with outward flarings of red. I'm almost tempted to leave it like that. In fact, how does it look? Yeah, I like that actually. So that, because of the essentially difference in color, it almost makes that middle chunk look like a completely separate bit framed by this. So that helps give it some contrast. I think it's the flag of Spain almost, so I guess this is a Spanish truck. Gives a little bit more color where I can. These sides, I'd like to put a splash of color in here, but I feel like it's going to be tough to make work. Let's lift off the ground here, so I can repeat that on the bottom.
Fuel critical.
Okay, I didn't paint quite well there. And something you can do, I'm not a huge fan of, just because I feel like it's a little too... It draws too much attention to the grid. But you could essentially, instead of using like panels or other tricks to get angles into your paint, you could just sort of pixel paint it. So, say I wanted a line out like that, I could just do it, you know? You have a block there, you have a pixel there, and if you sort of squint, it looks like the colors flare out, which is nice to do, but again, I feel like it takes a little too much, suspension of disbelief for what I like to do in the game. Yeah. I think you could still accuse this of looking a bit like an awkward, uh, honestly, it does look like a dog in a weird way. That cockpit's very, like, dachshundy. I don't know. It definitely looks like a few things smashed together to create a spaceship, but I don't think that's inherently the worst thing it could be. It seems to fly. That's an important step. I'm gonna adjust that vent. Yeah. So it flares open more often. Okay. Let's think it actually. I'm kind of cheating and doing testing when I'm building, but I suppose if the clock is running, everything's valid. I feel like this could use more gyro authority. So I think what I'm gonna do, and it'll also help a little bit with some of that. So Shift P. Oh, and I do need an antenna. I don't like the antenna there, which is a shame. But I do have room down here. Ah, perfect. So I'll have our antenna there, and I'll fit another gyroscope there. What I can do, so on a large grid, I like to use graded catwalks to cover sort of hidden detail, sort of like a vent and access panel, but we don't have those. What we do have are these barred windows, which aren't quite the same. They're a little too open, but they get the idea across. So I'll use those. That gives a little more detail down there. Got a nice front up here. I think having this open, having that little dip will improve things. Technically, you could now access that door, quote unquote, though I don't think that looks particularly good. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and do some quick setup, and we may be done. Actually, another one last thing. This could give us just a little bit of detail in some other spots where we need it. I want to have event controllers. I don't know if I'll use the ones on each side. Gives a little bit of, it looks like there's some stuff going on back there. But I want one of these to be for docking. It'll watch for connector connected. It watches the connector. And this will turn off pretty much everything. Okay. So I realized I have two event controllers, so I could have this full with all the various stuff I want. Basically it controls all these batteries and things individually. And then overflow I have happening on the second event controller. So hopefully that works. But, last thing was, of course, the hotbar setup that I came to do initially. So the main thing that needs to happen is we have a control to turn our hydrogen thrusters on or off. And then we'll have decrease and increase thrust override. And way over here we'll have a parking thing. So how this works, the thrusters at the back, the hydrogen ones, would be off. We'd have hydrogen in our tanks. I turn it on, then I can use my sort of speed throttle to adjust what speed they're burning at so that I can efficiently fly up to space. Yeah, I think we pause our clock at 6 minutes and 56 seconds. And we have one done space truck. So yeah, we have our valiant space dog. Hopefully this thing has enough lift and everything to fly 2 full cargo containers up to space. Which is what we'll, I guess, test now. Alright, here we are docked up to the Moe's Diner. We have fully refueled the ship, thanks to the big tanks on Moe's Diner and the connector. And I have filled up the cargo with uranium ingots. So if we look in here, and interestingly there's a convenient cargo access through the thruster. But we have 300,000 uranium ingots in there, 300,000 in the second container. That is a pretty full load. Uranium ingots are one of the densest things in the game. So even though it doesn't make a ton of sense for you to be transporting uranium ingots up to space from a planet, given uranium occurs in space and not on planets, that maybe isn't the most logical, but I figured it would be a good stress test. I may choose something a little more reasonable if it doesn't work. But we should be ready for our trip up to the stratosphere. Let's go ahead, we'll unlock. And yeah, we're way too heavy. Alright. Welp. I think we'll try something a little more reasonable. Okay, so I have replaced the uranium ingots that are still moving me on the ground. I replaced them with cobalt ore, which makes a bit more sense, because in reality, if you have, stuff in space, why'd you be coming down to the planets? It would be to mine stuff. So, cobalt, is a reasonable thing that's kind of a pain to get sometimes in space. So let's see if we can fly with this. Yes. All our directions of thrust seem good. We have enough power for them all. Okay. So, we'll turn on our hydrogen thrusters. We will kick them up to full juice. And we'll help them along with our atmo thrusters for the moment. Ooh, we are burning fuel quickly. I'm gonna turn the thrusters off. So with a full load, we may have to do this a little differently. Basically, I'm gonna kick the thrusters on once our atmo thrusters stop working. So we'll go straight up with our big lifting thrust until we can't anymore. Hopefully that'll get us up high enough that basically gravity starts to drop off and we can burn our hydrogen more efficiently. Now, it will be ironic if I can just make the transition. Because we are going full speed, though I think I need way more ion thrust for it to actually effectively take over. Yep, we're starting to drop. Okay, kicking on hydrogens. Full up. Come on. Get us on that gravity. Still slowing down. Oh, uh-oh. Nah, we're about to run out of rocket thrust. We're just out of gravity, and there go our boosters. Oh? No, I think I'm falling now. Yeah. Alright. Well, that didn't go as planned. Okay. What we're gonna do, because I sort of flubbed up initially, I think we're gonna try this again. This time, though, I'm gonna be more effective in my burn. So we'll do what we ended up doing, which is boost up as high as we can. I'm gonna wait until all our momentum dies from essentially throwing ourselves up with atmo thrust. And then hopefully we'll be able to make it all the way with a full tank of juice. Also, I hope I stop in time. Yeah, it looks like I'll be good. See, most of my experience with this design is on a personnel transport that I don't even think has cargo capacity. So it, compared to this ship, even though they're about the same size, this ship is much heavier. I'm also wondering if maybe I should have gone ahead and had 4 tanks instead of the 2. Because I thought about putting 2 tanks ahead of essentially the middle thrust, or the back thruster. We'll go to a pad that isn't covered in uranium. Yeah, so we may have not given ourselves enough fuel capacity. There we go. Alright. Lock up, tank up. Hopefully round 2 goes better. Take 2, here we go. So we're just gonna lift straight off. Full burn straight up. This'll hopefully give us the momentum to, well, make it fairly high up. Okay, we're dropping speed. I'm going to nose up and kick on boosters. We don't have enough juice. Nope, we're falling. Okay, I can't go up. That's not a good sign. We're falling back down. Okay, let's see if we can go this way. This isn't great. We've used most of our hydrogen to stop ourselves. So what I'm trying to do is go at an angle so that we're still going up, but it's up at enough. No, I don't think this is going to work, because at this point we're just going to be skimming the surface, moving forward, and we're out of hydrogen again. Dang it. Okay, I've got one more idea. Let's real quick start bombing cobalt onto the ground. I'm gonna see if this will work with just 1 cargo container full, which is kind of defeats the point of having 2. I mean, I guess if it works with only 1 full, I could shrink the whole thing. At this point, that's kind of, it's not really something I have the authority to do, I suppose I should say. But maybe I do anyway. Yeah, 1 container almost full. Let's go back and get some more fuel. I mean, the cab view does look great. Most of it is the fact that we have this truck-looking cab, but I think I added detail to it in a very effective way. Alright, so we have 1 cargo container full, the other one empty. You know, in theory, you may not one full large cargo container of ore is usually more than enough. In theory, this thing, you could be doing that, or you could be carrying an assortment of components that, maybe the other container's just for overflow. I don't know, I'm justifying pretty hard at this point. Fuel's full, up we go. And actually, I think we'll be able to tell. Yeah, if we can go forward like this, we should be good. And we are. Though, no, I don't like it. We're reverting again. And it's like playing KSP, trying to get a rocket to go. I mean, I guess that's basically what we've done, is we've given ourselves rocket propulsion, so with limited fuel, it behaves like a KSP rocket, or a real-world rocket, for that matter. Top up again, but that is a good sign. I was able to lift pretty reasonably in 1g gravity, which means when we kick on our thrusters, hopefully we will actually be able to go up. Alright. I think this is the final one. If I can't do it on this shot, then we're done here. Alright. Going up. Forget at what point. I could probably have been watching the altimeter and know when Atmos thrust kicks out. But I wasn't. So we'll just see when we start dropping again, same as before. Unlike last time, once we start dropping, I'm gonna just kick on the thrusters and start trying to go up. Because I think our best chance is to essentially extend our propulsion. Yep. Extend our propulsion up as much as we can. Yep. We're going up. Gravity's starting to drop. We're going pretty much straight up now. Okay, this is looking good. If we made it to this point, we have a good shot. We're now sitting solely on our booster, which is a bad idea. We can turn off dampeners so that our retro thrust doesn't fire. Once we get up to full speed, I can start throttling back, though it may not matter. Because we've burned through a lot of our fuel. And this thing isn't the most efficient. I really think it needed 4 tanks instead of just the 2. We're about to kick out. Yep. Okay. Turning on ion. 0.6G. Can we make it? Oh, it's not looking likely. We're stopping pretty badly. Oh, no. We're going up again. No, we're falling. We didn't. All right. Well, unfortunately, I think this ship is a failure. And so, as opposed to, filling it with dynamite and blowing it up, I'm just going to let nature take its course for this failed rocket ship. And I like the look of it. It looked like it had some potential. Unfortunately, I was worried about it from the get-go. I didn't over-design the thrust enough. I think 4 tanks and 1 cargo container would have been a safer bet. That would have still been a reasonable cargo shuttle. Could have maybe compacted the whole thing a little better. Yeah. It's a shame, and that's I mean, it's the downside of putting all the detail into a thing like this. I will say I did take a blueprint just because I like it. But yeah, unfortunately, you can put a lot of work into something, and if the actual engineering of it isn't sound, well, you end up in a situation like this. Now, this is a pretty reasonable, like in either Atmo or space, this would work fine. But the whole idea was the transition. So, here we go. And blam? I don't even think we lost any cargo. Yeah, well, I suppose this is the end for this valiant space dog. It was a good try. The the technique and the idea is still sound. I've done it before. I think it needed more thrust. And truthfully, maybe for a thing like this, it's not worth trying to cheat and have, it's not really cheating. It's actually engineering. It's the point of the game. But maybe for this situation, the solution isn't to try and engineer something that can do both. The best idea is just to design something that can, has enough fuel to operate itself wherever it is. And you just accept the fact that you're burning hydrogen just the whole time you're on a planet. And it could be a good incentive to have multiple vehicles. So you'd have a hydrogen-fueled rocket that just has cargo hydrogen tanks and, it basically is a hydrogen-only shuttle. Maybe with some ion maneuvering thrusters on it so that once you get to space, you can stop using hydrogen. If you rely on that for your up and down, you could then have an atmospheric cargo ship for the planet that goes to wherever, different mines or whatnot. Or, as most people tend to do, you have your mining machine. And truthfully, if you just build a hydrogen mining ship, you can usually make something that, with a reasonable amount of planning, can just go down to a planet, mine whatever, fly back up, and be A-okay. So yeah, thank you everybody so much for watching. Feel free if you have ideas for anything you'd like to see built, and just interesting challenges you think could have to engineer leave them down in the comments, you know the drill. And until next week, bye bye.